Welcome to Every Animal Has an Owner, a mostly large animal podcast for veterinarians and the people that depend on them.
Commercial vaccines take on average 5 to 10 years to license. I think a conditional license, the last survey I heard, was 5.2 years, and millions of dollars of investment. That's fine if you're dealing with something that doesn't change and is going to stick around quite a while. But we know that it's a problem if you're dealing with something that changes, like coronavirus or like rotavirus or influenza virus, because by the time you've gone through your 5 or 10 year developmental pathway, that virus that you used as the base of your vaccine is no longer the one that's circulating in the population. So the USDA recognized this, and they came up with the guidelines for prescription platform, which is what Medgene does. And those guidelines say that you have to spend that 5 to 10 years to show us you know exactly what you're doing and to make a roadmap of how you're going to make your vaccines. And you have to stick to that roadmap very precisely. But if all you change is the target protein that you're putting into that system, then at the end of the day, they will allow us to swap that out. So that allows us to rapidly change our vaccines and keep them up. So the only real approaches for dealing with circulating strains are autogenous vaccines and prescription vaccines. And the main difference with that is the autogenous is using that whole killed organism, where there's a certain amount of trust that's got to be given that not only are you going to mount an immune response against that, but because of the requirements for a herd of origin, that you're going to get hit with the same thing again and again and again that you're going to have protection against. Prescription, we have some advantages because of the safety factor and the fact that we've gone through a full license procedure for our outline of production. And that advantage is that we can target proteins based on the entire U.S. or Iowa or Minnesota. And so we can formulate vaccines that address that, and the producer doesn't have to wait to get hit in order to use that vaccine product. We can make combinations where we're not worried about antigen overload because we only have 1 or 2 proteins from each virus. So we can put a significant number of proteins and do multivalent vaccines, which is dose limiting. But we are still held to the production standards that are required of fully licensed commercial products. It's well known that there are certain vaccines which have been adopted into routine use, but unfortunately are subject to these changes. Bovine coronavirus, we know, has changed since most of these vaccines that are currently licensed and in use were produced back in the 1990s and the 2000s. And so the USDA has told us that there is strain variation, and in fact the genotype of what's circulating in the field is different than what it was when these vaccines were licensed. We know that influenza changes regularly, and we can update our vaccines yearly for that. We know that rotavirus changes fairly rapidly and can be conserved within flows or within individual production systems and differ, and we can produce those very rapidly, very economically, and very effectively using our platform. So it's really a matter of specificity and control. And the prescription platform really represents, I think, the most up-to-date mechanism of producing vaccines today.